What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's final thoughts-ish. Things could change by tomorrow. We'll have a deadline stream, of course, ahead of the Game Week 12 deadline on Saturday. There's still quite a bit to discuss, though. I always think once I've done team selection, I've done Game Week preview, is there going to be much more to talk about? And then the press conferences throw stuff up. We've heard from Klopp, obviously Pep Guardiola in particular. People are talking about Havertz now because we've heard from Tuchel as well. And I obviously want to go through my kind of current thoughts. And I won't even tell you how long I've spent in transfer planners this week. It's been pretty crazy. I still not fully decided on Kane versus Son. I think I'm probably going to side to Son. I've even looked at getting like Josh King or Pookie in, right? Because I can't afford to get Tony now. And those two would also allow me to get James. But we'll come on to that later on. I'm going to go through some of the popular kind of questions that people sent in first of all. Obviously, we'll do like the normal one-take things. So if you enjoy it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button as normal. Let's go, right? So do we actually, this is a good one, do we actually need a Spurs player in our team, or is it better to wait and see? So first of all, let's narrow the question down. Do you need a Spurs player that's not Kane or Son? No, right? Could Reguilon and Emerson Royale be great options? Could even Eric Dyer or Ben Davies maybe be good, cheap options? I'm not saying they're as good as Reguilon or Emerson Royale. They're not as attacking for sure, but they are very cheap. If Conte can make them into a good defensive side, that doesn't mean they can't attack, but they can also be a good defensive side, then they'll all be good value. Is there a rush to go and get these players? Absolutely not. They've got the fixtures, but let's not forget, if Conte hadn't come in, and obviously we have to take that news, you can't just ignore that news, you can't pretend it's never happened. That is a big deal, him coming in. But if he hadn't come in, we wouldn't be looking at any Spurs defenders right now. Some people would be looking at Kane on Son because of the fixtures, which is fair enough. I would have been looking at it too. But Conte does change things. So I don't think we need to rush out and buy any of their defenders. They're good options, though. So if you need a defender transfer this week, I've definitely looked at Reguilon. I've looked at Dyer. I've looked at Davies as well. But Kane and Son are probably the two that most people are looking at. Again, do they have to come in this week? No, not necessarily if you've got other moves that you want to make. They're obviously very expensive. You could keep Vardy. You could go and get Jota first. There's not really a kind of correct answer. I mean, if Liverpool had like a slightly better fixture, I don't think Arsenal at home is that bad, by the way, as discussed on captaincy. I think you could make a case to get Jota in before Son. The biggest difference is you almost need to get Jota in a bit sooner just in case Firmino comes back. Whereas with Son, you kind of know he's always going to be nailed, so you could get him a little bit later on. I think the Brentford at home, Norwich at home game in kind of 14 and 15 are really the two fixtures where you'd really want Spurs players. But Leeds at home is also a good fixture. So, you could wait and see. It depends, but I guess the question is, what are you waiting for? If Kane and Son score 1 goal this week, is that going to be enough? Do they need to score 2 goals each? Is that going to be enough? Like, sometimes you have to just preempt these things. They've got the fixtures. They've got the quality. We all know that. It is a good time to jump on Kane and Son. Simple as that. But it doesn't mean we have to break our teams apart. You don't have to take loads of hits to get them in. If you're in a situation where it's going to take you a -4 or a -8, depending on how you're restructuring, you could just wait. Right? You could just wait. There's lots of excitement because of Conte, because of the international break, because of the fixtures. But you can often get like, what's the thing called? Like tunnel vision. Like, you have to get them. It's what I was like with Foden recently. It doesn't always work. Your team might be fine without them, right? Most people are only going to have one. Most people are not going to captain them. It's not the end of the world if you go into this week without one. That being said, I'm probably going to buy one myself. Question 2. No, I'm not going to say it like that. So, Jota or not? What are your thoughts on Jota and his prospects for our FPL teams now that Firmino might be back sooner rather than later? So, originally, it was never confirmed how long Firmino would be out for. Right, last game week before the international break, it was kind of described as a serious injury. The Athletic said that he could be out for like up until mid-December, which would have been quite a few game weeks. And now Klopp has said, if I can just find it here, that he's not going to be available for this weekend, but he could be back sooner than we thought. And I really should have just found the quote. Here we go. Before I started recording in a one-take fashion. Yeah, where is it? Yeah, Firmino getting closer, but not for this weekend. We'll see. It will take a little bit longer still. So that doesn't really help us, right? We don't really know what that means. It definitely means he's out this week, and it's going to be a bit longer still, but it's a bit sooner than they expected. So we don't even know what they expected in the first place. They never gave a time frame. So I still think Jota is a good pick, right? There was a question on Patreon earlier that at what point should we stop planning for him, right? So for me, with a lot of the transfer plans that I'm coming up with, it's not until game week 14 or 15 that I can buy him. The simple matter is, if I get to those game weeks and Jota's not such a good option because Firmino's back or something like that, then I just won't get him, right? So if I was looking at him this week, if I already had a Spurs player, I wanted to prioritise Jota, I still think he's a good buy this week. Firmino could still miss a bunch of game weeks, and bearing in mind at this time of the season, when a player misses out weeks, they could, like, if you miss 2 weeks, you could miss like 3 or 4 game weeks at this stage of the season, especially going into the start of December with midweek game week deadlines. So I still think he's good. There is a chance that Firmino comes back sooner, but one, when he's back, how quickly will he get put back into the side? And then you've got African Cup of Nations, so Jota's probably going to play anyway. So I still think he's a good buy. I don't think today has really changed my thinking too much. Again, does it need to be a hit or anything like that? Probably not. But I still think he's a good buy. So if I could do it, if I already had a Spurs player in place, like if I could get Kane and Jota or Son and Jota in 2 moves, I would still get him this week. Simple as that. This one, would you ever go through a game week without a goalkeeper? I think there's loads of different scenarios where you could say yes, but I think most of the time the answer is no. I think if you've got no goalkeeper, that is probably one of the best uses of your transfer, unless you're absolutely sure that Sanchez is a kind of a class or a step above every other goalkeeper, and therefore, even if he misses this week, he's still going to outscore the rest of them over the next kind of 10 to 15 weeks, whenever your next wild card. Then I think it probably is worth using a transfer on. Like if you think about how like a model, like a Rate My Team on Fantasy Football Scout or something like that, they're never going to show you like, okay, Salah's going to get 15 or 20 points this week, right? They're going to kind of work out over the course of the season what they're going to get based on opposition and stuff like that. And then it's usually like 5 to 7 points. So if you use a transfer on an outfield player, you're probably gaining like, and I'm probably explaining this really badly, but you're probably gaining like 1 to 2 points or something like that. With a goalkeeper, potentially you could bring someone in this week that's got a good chance of a clean sheet. And the amount of points you're going to gain is going to be higher, if that makes sense, than using a transfer on another player who is going to... Basically, well, I don't know, let's say Havertz to Jota. Is that a better use of a transfer this week than selling your goalkeeper that's not going to play? Probably not. Because although Jota's a great pick, Havertz is also probably going to play and do well this week as well. So the benefit of making that transfer is not as high as transferring your goalkeeper out, if that makes sense. If you've got Steele on the bench, then you probably just hold, right? I don't think this person did. I think they mentioned they got the Leicester backup goalkeeper, I believe. But if you got Steele, you could just play him, then have Sanchez back next week. But if you've got no goalkeeper at all, you could make a move. Now, you could just get Steele or Foster if you want to save a bit of money and as your backup goalkeeper and just keep Sanchez. But I think it is worth making a move. I don't think most people's teams are going to be in such a state where they have to make a transfer that's better than making the goalkeeper transfer. And especially if you think Ramsdale or Guaita or whoever it is going to score more points over the next 10 to 15 weeks anyway, then it's definitely worth making the move. So there's not many times I'd go into a game week without a goalkeeper. I probably have, but I wouldn't do it that often. This question is going to come up a lot over the next few weeks. How strong of a bench is necessary with the upcoming game week? Or the upcoming schedule? For me, I think sometimes we kind of mix up strong bench or expensive bench and playing bench. So this bench right here is a classic one that probably a lot of you are on. So it's Livramento and Brownhill and then Duffy in the middle. So you might have a different player in that position, but you've got some kind of other... It could be a defender, it could be a midfielder, it could be a forward, because a lot of people are set up with really good squads. So you could have Armstrong on the bench and Bomo, whoever it is, right? To me, that is enough of a bench over Christmas, because all 3 of those players... Now, Duffy might lose his place at some point, although he's only missed 1 match so far this season. To me, that is 3 playing players. What more do you really need, right? How often are you really going to use that bench and get down to the 3rd spot? It will happen at some point, but I don't think it will happen in so many game weeks you're going to regret having that bench. Like, to me, what you'll gain by having that money in your first 11 most weeks is much more important than that one game week you go down to your third bench and you get Brownhill off the bench for his 2-pointer. Like, I just think the money is better spent. Now, with the way the teams are set up right now, if you think, like, a lot of people have got like Trent, Cancelo, James, and Livramento, so they got 5 good defenders. Then some people have got like Antonio, Tony, maybe Armstrong, someone like that, and then pretty much 5 midfielders that all play as well. And with Foster playing as well, a lot of people have got 15 playing players. That is enough. I don't think you need to downgrade a first 11 player to upgrade a bench player. I would never do that. But you should have at least 2 outfield playing players that are playing, preferably. Right? You could get away with 1, but I think at least 2, especially with the likes of Livramento, if you got him on him cheap, and Brownhill, whoever that third player is probably fine. So I think this is something that people worry about way too much going into the Christmas period. There's plenty of points to be gained from your first 11 as well. Obviously, having a good bench at all times gives you a bit of flexibility, because if a player is going to miss like a week or two or 1 or 2 game weeks over Christmas, you could then use your bench option instead and not have to use a transfer. But again, Livramento's been so good, Duffy's been so good. You could even play Brownhill if things got really bad. I just don't think you need to spend too much more money on those positions. But it is good to have a playing bench, not necessarily an expensive one. So what do you think of Gundogan as an option? So obviously today, Foden is a doubt. Grealish is probably out. And De Bruyne's tested positive for COVID. Now, I'm not quite sure how long De Bruyne is going to be out for. I was trying to have a look for it on Twitter, like if anyone kind of mentioned it, but it's going to depend on the rules around isolation, when he tested positive. I guess when he tests again, obviously he's probably got to have a negative test as well. So he could miss a few games. And I think Gundogan's been playing anyway. Let me just double check on the other screen. If I just bring this up here. Gundogan, where art thou? Here he is. So yeah, sorry, he's only played 2 of the last 3, so this could give him a few more minutes. I think he's a pretty good option for the price. 7.2 million. His numbers, underlying numbers, expected goals, expected assists are looking good, just like they did last year, and obviously he did really well. And without De Bruyne, I'd find it hard to see why he wouldn't play. Even when De Bruyne comes back, he could get minutes as well. And they have got some nice fixtures. Like, you could see him possibly play like 3 or 4 of the next 4. But I guess it depends on who is not coming in if you're bringing in Gundogan. Like, if the option is Gundogan or Jota, then for me it's Jota, right? If you've got Foden, then I wouldn't be selling him to Gundogan or anything like that. I think Foden is the better long-term hold. So I like Gundogan. I just don't like him more than Jota, who I think a lot of people are now going to be weighing up. And obviously it does take up another Man City spot. Depends how your team's set up. You might want Cancelo, Diaz, maybe Jesus at some point, Foden as well, are all options. So at some point you might have to move that spot around. But yeah, I don't mind as an option. I think he's fine. I would say he's good value for 7.2 million as long as he gets enough minutes, which he possibly could over the next kind of 4 to 5 fixtures. But I don't think what we've heard today would necessarily make me rush out to buy Gundogan. I think that if Gundogan and Jota were both nailed on, I'd always pick Jota over Gundogan. Like the number 9 for Liverpool, his underlying numbers are better. Yeah, that's where I'd spend my money. If you've got Jota and you've got Son or Kane or whoever, and you want another option, then yeah, Gundogan could be good for 7.2 million. Even if it's a short-term option, you could always sell him again later. And lastly, so I won't talk too much more about Jota because I feel like I've mentioned him quite a bit. Is it worth transferring Jota for Havertz? So let me just talk about Havertz primarily. I think Werner's been training, so he could play. And maybe Havertz misses out. I feel like Havertz is going to play though, because Werner and Lukaku have been out for a little while now. And Havertz has been okay. So I feel like Havertz will start. Not 100%, but I'm pretty sure he will. And Lukaku's definitely out. So would I sell Havertz? I think if you've got no other issues with your team, maybe you've already got your Spurs player, and if you want one, going back to that first question, you don't have to have one, then you can make a case to go Havertz to Jota. Because again, I think Jota is the better option. And until Firmino's back, Jota's going to be a great pick for whoever goes for him, right? I think if you've got a different transfer you should probably make, and because you know Havertz is going to play, that makes things easier. There's no harm in keeping him. I wouldn't do Havertz to Jota for a hit. I don't think that's worth it. So if you've got something else to do, Maybe it's getting Son or Kane in. And then you've got Havertz and you think, well, I also want to get Jota. I think you just do it next week. Like, Leicester away is not such a good fixture that you have to hold on to Havertz if you've got a transfer you want to make. A lot of people are going to be doing Havertz to Jota, Havertz to Son. I think both moves are perfectly viable this week. But if you've got something else you want to do, then holding Havertz also isn't a bad option. So to answer the question, is it worth transferring in Jota for Havertz? I think probably yes. I mean, other plans may arise, possibly, so you could hold on to Havertz. But I think no matter what happens next week, if Lukaku's back or Werner plays or whatever, I think you're still going to want to get rid of Havertz, and it'll probably still be for Jota, unless Firmino suddenly makes a recovery where, bam, he's back in the starting lineup next week. I'm just not sure about that. So I think it's a good move. I think Havertz is one of those. Until Lukaku and Werner are definitely back, he's sure you could sell, but sure, you could definitely keep as well. It all depends on what move you want to make. But Havertz to Jota, Havertz to Son, perfectly good moves, I would say. Or Havertz to Kane if you're using like 2 transfers, forward and midfielder. Okay, that's the end of the questions. Let me come on to my team. This isn't going to take long because I'm still not 100%. Foden is staying. There is a chance he plays. And with Grealish out and De Bruyne out, then I think if there is a chance that the Foden is fit, I think he'll probably get played. And I'm hoping if it really is a knock, like a bad one, then he just won't play at all. It's going to be a nightmare if I see him on the bench, right? Which could happen. I would hope at that point, Man City would win from an FPL point of view, obviously. And then Livramento will just come off my bench for him anyway. So I think you have to hold him. I think Foden right now is a classic case of don't buy, don't sell, play him, and that's it. Don't captain. Right? I think that's a cliche from a long time ago. Don't sell, don't buy, don't captain, don't bench. I think that is Foden this week, right? If you were planning on getting him, then I'd possibly move to either Gundogan or Jota instead. Jota being the favourite there. In terms of transfers, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm seriously considering bringing in Pukki for Norwich. Which I know what I said about Norwich a few weeks ago, or a week or so ago. If no one saw that, I basically said if Norwich were playing Norwich at home 5 game weeks in a row, I still wouldn't buy Norwich players. But because Vardy dropped in price the other day, I now can't afford to do Vardy to Tony and Saka to Son without a hit. And I just don't think a hit is worth it for me this week. Not when I can get to a Spurs player for free. So one of the moves is just Vardy to Kane. And can I show you the price? Yeah, I can show you the money at the same time. And Laporte to a 3.9. Probably Omobamidele. Yeah, I think he's probably the best 3.9. As long as he keeps his place under Dean Smith, we'll have to wait and see. But I just think what I would do if I did that is I would bench Saka this week and play Livramento against Norwich and play 4-3-3. And then next week I would play Saka against Newcastle and just mix things. I'm probably going to have to play Antonio against Man City, which I'm not crazy about, but it's not the worst thing to have to do either. And I won't go through the whole transfer plan right now because it's not that interesting. But basically, I've worked out a way where I can get a pretty decent team and get Jota in and get Ronaldo in game week 16. So that is an option. It might not be the best option, but it is a option. Essentially, I won't go through I won't go show you week to week, but we're now at the stage where we're considering 2 Norwich players. I'll come on to why Pukki in a minute. So that would be the general move. And then longer term, Jimenez down to Pukki, and then Saka can go to Jota. There, like that. And actually, once I've made that move, I've got 0.6 in the bank, so I could actually upgrade on with Bamidele later on. I would need a little bit of money to go from Kane to Ronaldo, but I'd possibly have enough to go to like an 8 Nuri possibly instead, like Wolves fullback who should hopefully keep his place. So that is an option. With Pukki, he's not necessarily that exciting. I'm just hoping that Dean Smith can do something. And also, if I look at strikers, like forwards, 6 million or less, there just aren't that many options. Let's go 5.9 less. The obvious ones are Armstrong, but week to week, I'm just not sure if it's going to be him or Broja that's going to play alongside Adams. They could all get rotated at some point, right? You got Hwang, who I don't think is a bad option, to be honest, but I don't think I'd necessarily want him straight away. or long term, basically. Like, it's okay for Norwich away and Burnley at home. I have considered him, but then the fixtures get pretty poor. And then with Josh King is another option. The fixtures are just pretty bad here, and I'd probably, if I get Kane in, I'd probably need to play my third striker, whether it's Pukki or King, etc., in these game weeks. He just hasn't got the greatest fixtures, but the fixtures afterwards are pretty good. But that is why I'm thinking, that's why I'm considering one of them. I just think Armstrong is a little bit too much of a rotation risk. I could be wrong. Southampton fans, let me know, because Armstrong is the one I'd like. I just don't think I can go there. And then underneath that, there are just no options whatsoever. Like, Vidra's not really an option, AU's not an option, etc. The list goes on. So that's if I go for Kane. And I think the fact that I can get Foden, Salah, and Bomo, Jota, and Kane and Antonio is not bad. And then I would basically play Livramento or Pukki most weeks, and at some point I might upgrade on with Bamadelli. It lets me get to Ronaldo. But I really don't think I'm going to captain Ronaldo anytime soon. I just think his good fixtures are at the same time as Salah's. So I just don't think I want to go there. The Son route is probably where my head's at right now. That could change in about 5 seconds after recording this video. But Vardy out, and again, you don't have to get rid of Vardy. There's not this big thing that says you have to sell him, but I'm going to sell him. I can't get Tony because he's 6.7. So again, I don't think I want to go for Edouard. I don't think so anyway. So I think I'd rather just spend less money. And again, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm coming back to getting Pukki in. I just don't know. Is Sargent going to suddenly play? I just think Pukki's like their main striker and has been for a little while. He's going to continue. And it wouldn't be the worst thing if I had to play him in these 3 fixtures. Like, long term, there are going to be weeks that I have to bench him. But for now, if I needed him, I could play him. I could play him, right? The other thing this lets me do is it lets me do Laporte to Reece James. Even if Reece James goes up in price to 6 million, I can still afford it. So this would be my Game Week 14 transfer, or Game Week 13 transfer. And then in Game Week 14, I'd probably roll. And then in Game Week 15, I've then got the decision about whether to get Jota or not. If he's still a great option, I just do Jimenez out to Locadia, and I do Brownhill to Jota. And then suddenly I've got the midfield that I think right now looks the best, right? This midfield might not be the best for long, but right now if I was wildcarding, this is probably what I would do, right? Even if it's template or not. Something like that. I'm not for the midfield. I'm not saying that's the exact forward line or defence I would have, but because I didn't get on James early, I didn't really get on Livramento that early. I paid a bit more for Cancelo, a little bit more for Chilwell. Obviously, Son's gone up in price as well. I'm a little bit behind on team value compared to some other people, so that is probably the best way I can do it. And even if I didn't get Pukki, I could only spend 6.3 on that spot, and there's just not really too many better. I can't believe I'm getting Pukki. I think I'm getting Pukki. I think that's what's going to happen. Pukki and Son in. How has it come to this? Is this the point in my season where it just dies and I have to come back in 2022-23? Quite possibly. Quite possibly. But I don't think this is a bad transfer plan. And obviously, most weeks I'm going to play James anyway, so I could bench Pukki or I could bench Mbomo. James is a really tough one for me because I'd be getting him in next week. So I'd be getting him in for Man United at home. And part of me just thinks you cannot do that, right? Forget the fact that I support Man United. I just don't like bringing in players against Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City. But Chelsea are at home, and I think that's going to be quite a tight game. Like, Chelsea, Man United has often, like, from memory, I could be wrong, but it's been quite tight. Because neither team's going to want to lose it, and I just think Chelsea defence is so good they could definitely keep Man United at bay. And then they've got Watford away. I'm going to be happy to play him in. West Ham away is not necessarily ideal because I'm probably going to have to play Antonio, but whatever. Then Leeds, Everton, Wolves, Villa, Brighton. They're all fixtures I'm happy to play James in. The only thing is, how often is he going to get rotated? And have I missed the boat? That's what's concerning me. But I just think he's got the legs to play that right wing-back role more than Azpilicueta does. Like, Azpilicueta is great. He still is. But it's not the same as Reece James in that right wing-back spot. And the defence is so good. I just think when you compare him to like a forward or a midfielder around the same price, I don't think the midfielder or the forward is the better option. So this way, I can't get Jota in straight away, unfortunately. But I think I try and make this a bit quick. I try and wrap this up. Basically, the way my head's been the last few days on transfers, it's been like, I've got to find a way to get Jota. I've got to get Jota. I've got to get Jota. Forgetting that there's other players that can score points. And yes, I ideally would like him in now, but I think this route is better. Just get Son in. He's got a better fixture this week. Worry about Jota down the line, and probably get Reece James in first, and then delay the move. I could potentially, if Laporte plays this week, that kind of tells me that he's still first choice-ish. I could then not do the James transfer straight away and save it until later, and maybe get Jota in game week 14 instead. Sell Jimenez before Burnley at home and get Jota in. So I do have kind of a bit of flexibility. But the way I keep coming back to it, this is my move. I could go for Kane. I just think it leaves not enough room for manoeuvrability like this one does. Yes, it's very difficult to go from Son to Ronaldo, but who knows? Maybe Fernandes will be the option by game week 16. It feels like a long time away yet. Plenty could happen over the start of December and stuff like that. So that's my team as it stands. I haven't made my moves, as you can see, but I'm thinking about getting Pukki and Son. Pukki and Son, yeah. It really came to that. I'll leave that there. I'll leave it on that fantastic, exciting note that Pukki might be in my team come the deadline. It might even be tonight. I'm not sure yet. If you did enjoy that, please do give it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. And I'll see you on the deadline stream tomorrow where you can all laugh that I've got a Norwich player on my team. Although, wouldn't it be great if I bench Livramento and Pukki wiped out his clean sheet? That would be great. Anyway, I'll see you on the deadline stream tomorrow. Good luck with your moves tonight. Give it a like. Hit subscribe. See you soon.